We're back and it's time for Ask Annex. Fred Coleman's a CFP and a wealth manager at Annex Wealth Management. Hey, Fred. And Matt Morzy, Director of Research, also a CFP. Hey.
Hey, Danny.
I love this first one. I'm a little embarrassed to quote an actor and a pro wrestler, but he was advocating on a podcast to be more involved in unsexy and safe investments. What are unsexy, safe investments to consider? And first off, you went and you looked this thing up.
Yeah, I had to look up the wrestler because I used to be a big wrestling fan, so I wanted to see if it was someone in my era. But John Cena's not in my era. So, but when I think of unsexy, safe investments, I'm thinking of things that get the job done, but they're not necessarily a big highlighter. Not a lot of people are talking about them. So I think of mutual funds. Those have made a lot of people rich, even though they're not quote unquote sexy. At the end of the day, with all investments, I'm looking at risk versus reward. I'm looking at what is the risk that you're taking and is the risk justifiable for the potential reward. Anytime when you look at an investment, a lot of people oftentimes only look at the reward side, but with any investment, you want to analyze both. Here at Annex, where we look at anytime someone comes through the door, how much could that investment potentially gain? How much could that investment potentially lose? And then it's up to you to determine if you believe that that is worth the risk.
You know, when I think of those types of investments, and as you're laying that out, it's the stuff that, you know, we get a lot of the questions that are, I heard around the grill, or I heard at the barbecue over the weekend. These are things that people are not going to talk about a lot. You know, no one's really going to be bragging about that bond fund, you know, that helped them out, you know, whether some of those financial storms or the S&P 500 fund that is, you know, just chugging along over time. So they're building blocks to a portfolio. They aren't the things that are going to go up, you know, 100% this year or something like that, but they're also not going to go down 100 either.
Ask Annex. Got a question? You head to our website, annexwealth.com. If we can help, you click that Get Started button. Second question, my son has significant credit card debt. He wants to tap some of his 401k to pay it off. Is there ever a time when this makes sense?
Nobody likes credit card debt, and I know when you have that lump sum, it can be awfully tempting to just take the 401k and pay it off. But this is one of the worst things you can do because of the taxes and fees that come with it. 401k withdrawal for most people, that's going to be 30% upfront, just a fee for taking the money out. You know, when you think about the taxes and penalties. So if you take $10,000 out, you're really taking out $13,000 to pay off that debt. So think about it like that. And then in the future, it's going to cost you even more, you know, with the potential compounding interest. So is that, going back to the previous example, is that $10,000 worth $50,000 or $100,000 in the future? When it comes to looking at paying off debt that you may think is insurmountable, you want to develop a structured debt payment plan. So starting from scratch, looking at your assets, looking at your liabilities, looking at your income, looking at your expenses, and really attacking the debt in a smart way. The only time that I've seen that potentially makes sense if it potentially prevents a bankruptcy, but oftentimes there are many things you can do before getting to that point.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of easier ways to attack this. Now, it's never easy to get out of debt when you're in there in the first place, and trying to work through is going to be hard. And sometimes, like you said, it's easy to go, you know what, I could just wipe this all out right away at the beginning. But, you know, if you have credit card debt in the first place, it might be easier to go back into credit card debt if you think you could just get out of it right away like that, right? So looking at those different alternatives, looking at maybe different sources of ways to get access to money in order to pay that down that are not going to have the high tax penalty in order to gain access to it. Maybe even looking at different credit cards too. Some credit cards allow you to roll a balance over to it. Maybe they have zero interest for a certain time period, but maybe you're paying 3% right away up front just to move that money into it. There's certain ways to revolve through that, but sitting down and really finding out a plan, setting up yourself for success to not only pay down that debt, but then stay out of debt going forwards too. It's always easy once you get out just to suck yourself back into it as well too, especially depending on how you got that debt in the first place.
Matt Morzy is Director of Research and a CFP at Annex Wealth Management. Thanks.
Thank you.
Fred Coleman, CFP, Wealth Manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.